All right, what is up, guys? It is your boy Tonks coming at you with another DNA YouTube video. 1.1 is upon us, so wanted to kind of do a hopefully quick little video talking about some of the things that I liked, some of the things I didn't like. A lot of people are talking about it right now. Are we cooked? Are we saved? What are we looking at as far as all this stuff goes? So let's talk about it. What I will say, just to kind of get into this, I think I'd kind of like to start with some of the positives. And the first main positive that I saw and that I did like, um, would be the graphical update. Some things that they changed with the map, some things that, just Washu in general, I think looks really good, changing and making the characters look, smoother and a little bit more anatomically correct, if you will. I think was definitely a nice change in comparison to what we had before. Some people don't like it as much as others. In my opinion, I think that it definitely overall looks really good. I think that the map, just the water, some of the buildings, all those things I think look really really good. And I think was a nice change. Kind of moving forward. So whether you like it, you don't like it. Again, my opinion that it was a solid change. Um, Going off of that, I also think that the story in general was pretty good. Um, I wish it was a little bit more, but I understand that they're continuing to build off of that, and that's kind of what we have currently. But I think overall the story was pretty well done. I'm not a big dialogue lore guy, so I kind of skipped a decent bit of a lot of that dialogue because I wanted to just kind of get through it and see what it was like, see what the new characters were looking like, and all of those good things. But overall, I think it was a solid part moving forward, and I'm definitely looking forward to kind of the next chapter or whatever you want to call it moving forward. I think it was pretty cool. And going off of the story, let's talk a little bit about some of the new characters that they came out with. I think from top to bottom, every single one of those new characters, how they looked, how they spoke, the story that kind of revolved around them, I thought was just really, really good. Um, you know, Kaizo looks really cool. I look really forward to when he comes out. I'd like to play him and like to give him a shot because I think he just looks awesome. Zilliu, obviously, I've talked about in other videos. That's kind of who I really, really want to play. That's kind of who I think I would probably like to main. She just looks awesome, sounds cool. Um, so I'm looking very forward to when she, inevitably comes out, hopefully in the next update. But we'll have to wait and see when that's going to happen. But um, thought she was really well done, looked really great, was just very, very cool. And then finally, talking about the main character of conversation, at least in this update, being Fushu. Um, yeah, she is awesome. They did a great job with her character model. I think her skills, everything about her. I think she is incredibly, incredibly busted. As you see me playing some of the theater here in the background with her as kind of my main support right now. I mean, she is just insane. If you look at my sanity, it is just really never going down. We're kind of just cruising right now. Um, we'll talk about theater here in a little bit, but overall, I think they did a really good job with her. I think she is very, very, very strong. I would argue she's probably the strongest support in the game right now, by leaps and bounds. So, I think they did a good job with her. The way she sounds, all of that stuff, just story wise, I think she's really, really cool also. So, again, just some things to think about there. Um, kind of going off of those things, I also want to talk a little bit about some of the co-op stuff. Seems really cool. I haven't really played really hardly any co-op, but from what I've been told and what I've heard, it seems to be going a lot better, at least than it was before. So I think that's just a positive, in and of itself. Um, I think the new demon wedges I think are cool, are very, very, very good. Um, it's kind of a positive and a negative to talk about that, but we'll kind of get into that here in a second. But the positive is that I really really like that they are coming out with new demon wedges and moving forward with that. That's the positive of that. We'll get to the negative half of that here in a second. But overall, within this update, those are some of the things that I liked that I think were positives and that were good to kind of go off of. Okay. Now, unfortunately, kind of moving into the negative, some of the negatives within this update. Okay, and again, I'm trying to keep this relatively quick, but we'll kind of just get into this here just a little bit. So, going off of what we talked about, the positives of the graphical update, awesome, great. Like, it looks a lot better, looks awesome. All of those things, great. I mean, when you look around here, the environment, everything looks great. The buildings, mountains, trees, water, all that good stuff looks really good, right? Awesome. I have heard, and again, I haven't really been subject to this a lot, but I have heard that some people have been experiencing some lag, some frame drops. I had a little bit in the story, but nothing too, too earth shattering, anything like that. Just a couple little areas that was a problem for me. But I know some people have said that they've had massive issues as far as some of that stuff goes. So totally understand they've got to kind of continue to hopefully refine that and hopefully move forward with it. And I'm hoping that it gets better. Okay, to be 100% good, flushed out and polished. Okay. From that, the big kind of topic of conversation that I think a lot of people are talking about right now and what they're a little bit upset about was what I was just doing, which was the theater. Okay, so obviously looking at it from a Psyche main perspective, you could see I was kind of blitzing through that pretty easily. Obviously, as most of you have seen a lot of my old, my other videos, most of my stuff is pretty fleshed out, pretty strong. My character is pretty strong right now, right? Totally get that. I've grinded a lot, did a lot of things for her. So she's pretty strong. Okay, great. What if you don't play Psyche? Well, now I guess you're just an idiot, right? Because you should have just been doing that from the start, right? It's like wrong, right? The hard part that I have with this and where I'm getting a little bit frustrated, and this is coming from a Psyche main, guys. Like this is who I play, right? And it has benefited me immensely throughout the course of how long this game has been out. But that being said, I obviously understand that not everybody is like me. Not everybody wants to play Psyche. There are a lot of other characters in this game, rightfully so, that most people want to play. A lot of people like playing Lady Nightfall and some of these other guys, Lynn, and wanting to try and get into it. Lisbeth, like it's not even we're not even gonna go down that road. But they want to play these other characters, which rightfully so, totally understand. But the way that it feels right now is that you either play Psyche or you're kind of falling behind in the limited end game that is currently available to us, which I think is a problem. Okay. So what are my problems with it? Well, the main issue that I have is that we are now on the third theater, right? The third theater, and all three of them have been Anemo style buff. Okay. So, like, that in and of itself is an issue if you want to play anybody else. Okay. Why is that an issue? Well, it's an issue. It was a little bit of an issue before, but now that with this one, it's a big issue because of this, whatever you want to call the difficulty that they've kind of established here. It's not true difficulty at all. It's just kind of like them inflating some things and debuffing some other things to make it appear that it's harder than it really should be. Okay, and that's kind of my problem that I'm seeing that's kind of coming out right now is that the positive is that they're looking at it and at least saying like, yeah, we need to make some things a little bit more difficult, which is great. That's absolutely accurate. The problem is the way that you're making it difficult is not, to me, just is not it. Okay, and a lot of that comes from all of these things, right? It's predominantly being the debuffs, right? Enemy units taking 6% reduced damage. This reduction diminishes by 10% each time they take damage from a different ally to the previous one, right? Allies lose 50% weapon damage and gain 100% crit damage. Like, and then ultimately the big one that's the big pain right now is this one, right? Damage taken by enemy units per hit is capped at 35% of their max HP. Like, that, and then this invincible cadence when at an extreme threat, enemy's HP falls below 50%, becomes invincible for 30 seconds and summons reinforcements. Each defeated enemy grants all allies attack damage, blah, 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 right? Like, those things, like, to me are just not great ways to add difficulty to the content, to the limited end game that we have right now. Okay. So, again, even as me playing Psyche, the issue that I'm seeing right now is that it almost feels like you either play Psyche and you juice Psyche up and get her in a strong spot to do these things, or you just don't do it. And I think that's kind of a problem with where we're sitting currently within this game. Okay, like I'm not going to sit here and argue and doom post and say all this stuff. Like I don't feel that way at all. I feel like it's definitely going in the right direction, but this is a little bit of a hiccup that I think needs to be addressed. You've got to create more diversity within your game, and you have to create more reason for wanting to play other characters. Because for me right now, I just chose Psyche out of the gate because I just liked her playstyle. I liked being able to fly. I thought it was just cool. So that was why I chose her. I didn't realize that me choosing her was going to be the luckiest decision I've ever made up to this point, because she just demolishes everything. I mean, every ounce of content she just demolishes. So to me, it's like creating this massive issue to where it's like, I really should work on this character, work on that character, whatever. But it's like, why? I have this team set that I have, and they are good to go. They literally can do everything. I can even AFK farm with this team. It's like, it's not really incentivizing me to build any further. Now in the next update, when hopefully they come out with something else, you might be able to get a good teaser on that and be like, okay, it's going to be Lumina this time. So where now I can start dumping resources on that. But as of right now, I'm not just going to build characters just to build them because just because, right? There needs to be a game plan. There needs to be something moving forward, because this game is grindy. It does take a lot of time in order to get, trying to get all of, these to where they need to be. I mean, this is a lot of time, guys, a lot of hours. For those of you who have been playing it, you understand how long this takes. For those of you who are just coming into this game and trying it now, this takes a long time. It takes an astronomical amount of time. So that's something to kind of consider, moving forward. Like I like the fact that they are seeing a need to make harder content and seeing the need to, hopefully build off of that and hopefully help develop a better end game for individuals like myself who are kind of at that point now, and other people are kind of getting to that point. That's what I hope comes out of it, but I hope they do it the right way and create actual needs or wants to build a character like this and get her to this point, because there is, a carrot at the end of that stick for what you want to chase. Now, whether I know, CJ and some of these other guys have thrown out there and said, hey, maybe make events to where you can get exclusive skins or get, exclusive weapons or whatever. It doesn't matter. I think those are all really good ideas, and I like those ideas. But trying to develop a want to try and build a strong character to move forward in that, not getting to the point where we're at now, where it's like, I have to build this specific character this specific way, or I can't get in a theater to unlock these other characters. Like, to me, that's kind of a problem, and I hope it's a problem that they fix. Okay. Again, love the fact they want to make the game harder. I think that's great, but there is a very specific way that they need to do it, and the way that they're doing it right now is hopefully just a test run, and they're going to realize that that's not really the way that you want to do that. Okay. And then kind of going off of that, the other negative that I saw, that it is a positive, but it's also a negative, is the new demon wedges. Like, I think it's great that they're coming out with new demon wedges, doing those things. That's awesome. But to initially only come out with Anemo demon wedges, again, continues to piggyback and go off of the fact that it feels like Psyche right now is the favorite child, and everybody else is just a background character. And I don't love that. Even as a Psyche main, I don't love that, because I do want to play other characters. But right now, they just keep coming out with more stuff for her, which I know is not going to be the case always. But to me, why would you? To me, you should have either done all of them out at once, or you should have looked and said, hey, these aren't ready yet. They need to cook a little bit more. So we're going to wait until we can push out a good chunk of them, or at least a few for each class, and then that way it would give you a little bit more diversity, a little bit more versatility, and it would give you a little bit more to do moving forward, to where just because the end game isn't necessarily there, well, we could start working on different characters and do different things along those lines. That was kind of my whole argument to why selfishly I wish they would have came out with all of the new characters right out of the rip, so that way it would have given people more of an opportunity to try and play and build different characters while they were trying to build end game content and do things over here. It would have given them more time because people would have been more entertained and more focused on these characters doing things with these building Ziliu and Keizo and Fushu and all these guys, and trying to take that time to build. That would have given them more time on the back end to create more end game content and create more things to do. Whereas now you're in a situation where it's like, if you get somebody like me who plays Psyche, it's like, okay, I've maxed my Psyche out. It's like, okay, well, you should play, Keizo. Well, I don't want to play Keizo. I want to play Ziliu. So I'm just going to stop playing until Ziliu comes out, which is not what I want for the game. It's what I hope is not going to happen for the game. But I think those things need to be addressed and need to be talked about to at least kind of give somebody a thought of like, yeah, we need to try and continue to work on the consistency and continue to work on these things, right? And I think going off of that, talking about those demon wedges, again, you're coming out with these demon wedges that are very, very specific for Psyche in general. Like this one specifically, Siren Wings Inspo Volition. Okay, you're talking about a character whose entire gameplay loop works around sanity management to help with her health management, and you're going to give them a wedge that's going to give them a 120% max sanity increase, to where before, and not even to mention the skill efficiency that comes with it. So it costs less to cast the skill, damage reduction, which is good. But then if you get your skill efficiency to a decent point, which is, 130 or above, which is not that hard to do, guys, you get more skill damage. Okay, which is like, that wedge by itself is just crazy, crazy, crazy for the character, especially when I'm running, when the stuff that I was running before on theater, I had 150 sanity before, and I had no problem managing my sanity. Now my wedge is even max, and I'm at 330 sanity, on top of having Fushu as a support who replenishes that sanity almost instantaneously, to where I just have just a perfect gameplay loop to where I'm never coming out of my super or my ultimate once I enter it. And through the entirety of theater or any of those things, I never have to come out of that ultimate, which is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly strong, because Psyche is almost invincible when she's in that ultimate. She's up in the air, she's hard to hit, and if you can manage those things, it just makes everything a lot easier, on top of giving more skill damage. It's just this, to me, it's kind of putting us in an issue where, again, the focal point seems to be continuing to be her, and everybody else is just a background character. And that's not what I want for this game. That's not what I know a lot of people who don't want to play her want. They want to play other things. They want to be, especially when you have characters like Randy and Hellfire and some of these other, characters that need a lot of help, and you're not giving that help. You're just making Psyche, who was already the strongest, that much stronger, which to me is a little bit of a problem right now, right? Even as a person who mains her. I'm just building her up even more than she already was from the get-go, which is crazy, right? Like, even this one, more resolve, more tolerance cap, all of these things, that it's just continuing to build off of her when she was already really, really, really strong. And now she's just even more strong, and it's the same thing, to where now you're creating this issue, in my opinion, of, okay, let's say you've got Psyche and Lady Nightfall, who in my opinion were the two strongest characters from the get-go. I'm not saying nerf those characters, but you need to work on kind of keeping them where they're at and then bringing everybody else up to them, right? Because if you buff everybody again, and it doesn't matter if you bump them by an inch or a mile, Psyche and Nightfall are always going to be that much further in front of them. So to me, I would have left them a little bit alone, or kind of waited for everybody else to catch up before you started implementing these things, and then kind of get everybody into a good spot by themselves, to where if one is better than the other, it's very, very minuscule. Whereas right now, that is not the case. Like she is immensely, immensely better than everybody else right now. It's not even close. And I know these guys are going to try and bring everybody else up, and I know that's in the works and all those things. But unfortunately, those things I think need to happen a little bit faster. And I'm not sitting here and denying that I understand development time takes a long time, and doing these things takes time. Not saying that, I'm not trying to take it away from these guys at all. But I think that those things are, ultimately those are things that need to be talked about and need to be addressed. Okay. But overall, that's kind of all I really have at this point. Again, I'm hoping that with where this game's going, if they can keep kind of pushing it in the right direction, they can start finding their niche of players. Because to me, right now, you can almost cut it down the middle. You've got the gotcha players over here, and then you've got more kind of like Warframe players on the other side that really enjoy grinding, and they're trying to a ton of those. But because it was going to be a gotcha game initially, and then at the last minute they changed their mind, decided they didn't want to do that. Well, those gotcha players didn't just go away. Most of them went back to their homes and their caves on Reddit, right? And that has created this unfortunate spot of they're going to pick apart every single thing that you do because it's not being a game that they want, but they're going to let everybody else know that it's not a good game, which I don't think is really fair. Obviously, I think everybody's entitled to their own opinion. You're totally allowed to have that opinion. I think the opinions get a little bit more bold when you're sitting behind a computer screen. It makes it a little bit easier to say some things that you probably wouldn't say to somebody's face, which again, right, wrong, or indifferent, that just is how it is. That's how it's always going to be. But ultimately, I think it's heading in the right direction. I do really like it. I hope that they keep building off of this. And I think that they have, with this update, I think they have set a good base to build off of and to move forward. And I hope that they continue to do that, because at the end of the day, you're not competing against Destiny or Genshin or Warframe or any of these games. You're competing against everybody, because ultimately at the end of the day, what is everybody competing for that is a game developer? They're competing for your time, and that ultimately is the biggest competition. So it doesn't matter if it's this game or that game or that game, you're all competing for players' time. So hopefully they can keep building off of this. Hopefully they can keep moving in the right direction. And I think that they will. If they've done nothing, they have shown that they put out the streams, they listen, they let people test out their game before they put out updates and things like that. They're letting people do all these things, and they're taking, criticism and praise, I would say equally, probably more criticism than anything right now, but at least they understand that. They're trying to move forward and, try and cut these guys a little bit of slack, man. They have families, they're human beings, they're trying to develop a game that hasn't really been developed like this before. There are some similarities and things like that to other games, but it seems fairly good in my opinion. And I think it's going to keep getting better, but we have to give the time where it's needed and where it's due. And again, try to give criticism constructively, hopefully, respectfully, hopefully. That doesn't always happen, but hopefully those things can kind of keep moving this game forward, and then they can keep going in the direction that I think will be a good spot to be in. So again, those are just my thoughts. Hopefully, you guys agree or you disagree. Either way, totally understand. Or if you have something to add, I would love to hear some of your guys' thoughts. So feel free to leave them in the comments. And as always, hopefully until next time, guys take care.